Links to credible sources related to topics we discussed this episode will be included in the description below, whether you're listening on YouTube or Spotify. Enjoy the podcast.
Eek Fark Durkle, someone's gonna get laid in college.
I've been reading, I've been watching the Mortys.
You've been watching them rigor mortis.
I've been keeping up with this stuff. You know, the
Alex has spiked Coca-Cola.
maybe I laced it all. Yeah.
With psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that actually
Fire's changing colors.
that actually leads nicely into the first topic.
For me, it is. The music gets louder when you take off your sunglasses.
That actually leads nicely into one of the first kind of general stoner theories about how apes sort of turned into
Get it? Stoner theories? Because cavemen, and they use rocks.
I'm gonna break your shins.
That's why it was called the Stone Age, man.
Oh, because everybody was high.
That's kind of one of the popular theories among people as to how apes started to kind of turn into the slow transformation into humans, sort of like one of those horizontal escalators in airports. You know what I'm talking about? The ones ones that you step on, and that's kind of like the process that the apes took. It was like one of those things, but they weren't like those annoying people like me on those where you like walk so you can feel like you're going really fast. They just kind of just took a seat and they rode it the whole way down the airport.
You sit on the ground. You sit on the conveyor belt. You just sit there.
No, that's what the apes did.
What you do is you put two of them next to it, you sit on it, you just go wee, back and forth.
No. You know what you do? You wear your headphones around your neck and you blast them like a D-bag as you're going down the everybody gets to listen to you, listen to Drake as you're going down, and everybody hates you for it.
So with the psychedelics, I mean, there's no better way to evolve than just slap chemicals into your brain and hope something works.
I mean, I guess, but that's your thought process now. We are talking about before people could think, right?
I mean, whether
like
they did it on purpose, it's a good idea.
They wouldn't think about putting psychedelics into their brain to enhance them.
They go, funny plant make, huh.
So what the theory is? It's they've recently called it. I'll just give a kind of a brief overview of it, just to give maybe people who haven't heard of it to know what it is. But anyways. Terence McKenna, who is a popular psychobotanist, I think it's called, which is just someone who studies psychedelics, like how a botanist would do with plants. But it's like just the specific study of
just
that.
Just the fancy ones that make you smell colors.
It's a covered
the ones that make you smell colors.
But he was sort of one of those.
Makes it feel like your toes don't exist.
He was sort of one of those guys who tied it in with.
I think I do.
Tied it in with like kind of spiritualism and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a book in 1992 called Food of the Gods. And I
think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's kind of a popular thing, especially like in the whole podcast circle because of like Joe Rogan and all that. But
just making that podcast plug. We gotta compete with those podcasts. We can't be mentioning them.
I can always cut that part.
Also, speaking of that sweet Jeffrey, what's his name?
Jeffrey Dahmer?
No, the sweet Bernie sponsorship. Where is that Bernie money, man?
Well, actually, now that we're talking about psychedelics, we might get a Bernie sponsorship.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bernie,
you're
hit
right.
us up.
Yeah, because you know.
Man, we're still looking for that sweet.
Do we even have an email?
Sweet Bernie.
Yeah, we actually do have an email.
Do we actually?
Yeah.
I don't have Instagram, so I don't look at the thing.
But Instagram is an email.
Yeah, Instagram is just email.
Yeah, but you can plug the email there. That's probably where he has it, right?
I think I have it on.
Do you have it on the YouTube
I think
channel?
I put it in the description too.
Yeah.
If I don't, I could start putting it there.
Down below.
But anyways, so kind of what the theory recently, people have started kind of colloquially referring to it as the stoned ape theory because of what it...
Real quick, simple disclaimer for everybody listening. We are outside. You will hear vehicle noises.
Yeah. Hopefully,
and wind probably.
Yeah, wind too.
Hopefully, no one like rips an engine beside the house.
Hear
But
an
anyway, so
explosion.
his original idea, he didn't originally call it that. That's just what it's been called since. But basically, what his idea was, like the kind of short and skinny of it.
Short and skinny
Short
of
and
it.
skinny of it, you know.
You know, like the skim milk.
Skim milk. Skim milk.
I tried
awful.
almond milk at one point when I was like really into the dieting phase, and I was not into it.
Okay, almond milk by itself is awful. Putting it in things like milkshakes or something like that isn't bad.
Well, I think that's more kind of like a psychology thing, where like you just think it's not as bad because there's other flavors, but it's really just if it wasn't in there, it would be better.
I mean, fair. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's a chunky log.
You're a chonky log.
Thank you.
That wasn't a compliment.
But so anyway,
Well, I took it as one.
his so basically what the overview of his theory was that about 2.6 million years ago to
You know what? That's a good right word.
No, exactly 2.6.
exactly
Not
Exactly
about.
two-
Not about.
Not
Exactly.
about.
not 2.7 exactly 2.6.
What about 2.6 in 1 second?
no see
No,
it didn't happen yet.
exactly.
Okay, I got
It was
you.
1 second away from happening. At
I
that
got
point.
you. I got
The
you.
epiphany was just right on the edge.
But see, now it's 2.6 in 1 second away. But when I said that, it was only 2.6.
It's been more than a second.
Yeah, it's been like.
Well, it's
8
also
or
been
9
like-
seconds.
It's also been 30 years since this book came out. So.
You're 30.
Oh, it's actually the 30th year anniversary of the book.
Is it really
Yeah,
today?
Like
'cause
today?
Well, I don't know today. I just the year
Oh.
because it came out in '92.
Did you know?
800, eight psychedelics for 800, Alex.
Drugs.
You're just gonna go mush.
What is
Mushroom.
mushrooms?
There you go.
What is mush?
That's 800 points on the board to Mr. Colors Man.
What
Thank you,
is
thank
LSD?
you. Anyways, so what his theory was about 2.6 or so million years ago. We still hadn't evolved.
Did someone just set off a grenade in my house? What was that?
They did the thing where they lay on the grenade and it makes the little poof. We still had yet to evolve from the apes, and what they
You have yet to evolve from the apes.
wow, thanks.
You're welcome.
And what they said started happening was that the apes, because they were nomadic, because they hadn't started establishing villages yet, they would follow around like groups of cattle because basically what they were doing was they would follow the cattle to their food sources and then also get the food. So it was sort of like a one-way positive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was like they would follow the cattle would get nothing from it, but
What is
the
happening?
apes would get food. But anyways,
I think we're
so
being invaded. I keep hearing small explosions in the distance.
so what
We'll
the
start seeing beams of light going through the sky. This will be our last podcast, everybody.
this is when the aliens come.
Yeah, we're gonna.
It was July 4th about like a month
because you
ago.
stepped on the neighbor's
I
yard.
know the aliens are coming for us.
The countdown's already taken.
But so what the theory is involving that is they would follow around the cattle, and in the cattle poop basically, this specific sort of mushroom would be growing because it's a fungus, and the humans, not knowing that it was feces, like they would see the mushroom and they would eat it, and because of that started to help in the development of the ape brain into the human brain. And the reason that he thought of that theory is because at that time is when archaeologically we've seen that the brain tripled in size in a very quick amount of time. And
So basically, eat shrooms that come out of Dookie and brain get bigger.
yeah,
I should try that.
that's kind of the theory, because where McKenna was saying that our ancestors were living at that time, where the herds of cattle were, there's a type of mushroom that can grow in that environment. I'm gonna try to pronounce this, but I don't know if it's right. Psilocybe cubanus.
Can I see it?
It's definitely psilocybe cubensis.
Cunibus? That's a word.
Cubensis. Anyways,
Oh boy.
Hey, next time someone calls you a dookie brain, you can
Call
take that
him-
as a compliment.
you can call him a psilocybe cubanus. Anyways, but it's a specific type of psychedelic mushroom that is known to grow in cattle dung, and he basically argued that because we had low food sources at the time, we saw that and were like, well, we need food, so they would eat it, and so it was accidentally aiding them in the development of the
Why
brain.
didn't they just kill the cows?
because they didn't know they could at the time.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. You know,
have you ever seen a group of monkeys throw rocks at a cow to eat it?
No,
exactly.
Because I've never seen a monkey. I've never seen a monkey and a cow in close proximity to each other.
Well, it's because we evolved.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of why a monkey can't be next to a cow.
No, that's why you've never seen a monkey next to a cow.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but like, you know, like if I was a monkey, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I was like just minding my own business and I picked up some dung and ate it, I mean,
well, no,
sure,
they didn't eat the
dung.
Yeah, they weren't eating the dung. They were picking out the mushrooms.
Whatever, dung mushrooms, right?
Dung shrooms.
Dookie shrooms, right? If I just like ate a dookie shroom, like sure it may have aided them in the brain, but they probably still got high, right?
Well, no, that was what that was the rest of the theory, was that what it was doing was, because at first they were monkeys, so it was like just a normal ape, and then they ate these mushrooms and they were getting high from the mushrooms, and because they were doing this for such a prolonged period of time, their brain was constantly in the high state, and that's what started to develop our ideas of like religion and the self and things like that.
A lot of religions is just a guy going out to a hill.
That is
and then God talks to him.
And then something catches on fire.
Psychedelics are crazy, bro. Like, the fact that they work like that, like, had you...
Well,
why?
From my basic understanding of how it works is it's sort of like a link in a chain. And so what it is in our brain, there's sort of these unconnected chains, and then the psychedelics acts as like a sort of bridge between it, so it makes things happen quicker. I could be wrong. I think I could be just paraphrasing that, but that's how I remember hearing it.
That's fair.
That's how certain drugs work, is that they make things happen in a quick, like caffeine does that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
If you take too much Excedrin migraine, you feel like there's spiders all over your body, and that's just a universal thing for everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fun. And I'm sure you're not talking from experience. You just look.
I think
up.
it's like you have to take like 10 within an hour, which will like tank your liver or something.
Yeah, that'll also probably slowly kill you.
Did you see Stranger Things 4 yet?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
I got bored.
Oh, so you didn't see any of 4?
No.
Okay. Because there was one of the plot points in there is that the main villain has like this weird thing with spiders where he feels like really at home with them, and I was gonna say maybe he took like 10 of those.
Too much Excedrin.
He took like he like highly overdosed one day and then just started seeing spiders.
So that's a good point of how like they like started developing the brain, and I guess that makes sense because you were talking about like the brain linkages. It could link stuff to make them start to like build a conscious. But judge higher up, may I ask a question?
Judge higher up?
Yeah.
What?
Master Judge higher up, may I ask an inquiry?
Yes, you may ask an inquiry.
Okay.
Master.
I don't know if I'll have the answer, but you can ask.
It's like a general, just a broad, like kind of topic.
It's just
discussion.
like an opinionated thing.
Not really an opinionated. It's just a topic idea.
Okay.
Right. What is consciousness?
Ooh.
Like, what is that?
When
It's
brain
like
goes zappy zap.
It's the state of being aware
that you're there,
aware of
right?
yourself, aware that
but
you exist,
how do
and
you
aware.
feel that? How do you get?
I don't think it's a feeling.
There's you know those like tiny hairy jumpy spiders?
Jumping spiders?
Not just the normal jumpy ones, but like the tiny ones that like look like tiny tarantulas that jump.
Jumping spider.
No, but they're different.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but they're we think that they're sentient because like they seem self-aware, and like you can get one in adulthood and like be friends with it almost.
Can you start making it do your taxes?
Okay, sentience doesn't mean intelligence.
Holding a normal sized pencil.
doing
But yeah, I think that kind of is a good point with conscious, because I think it's sort of a very human thing to do with when we define things that we think we're the only ones that have, where we define things based off of us. So we define,
it's like strictly us.
Yeah.
Like anything that doesn't fit that exactly, we don't think it is.
So basically, it's like we use ourselves as like the base minimum kind of thing. So we always imagine that other things, like aliens or whatever are more intelligent than us. We don't imagine aliens that are less intelligent than us or less developed than us. Like we don't normally think of aliens as just like amoeba, even though those would be aliens.
Yeah.
And so it's the same type of thing with conscious, where like just because we don't see any other animals that do the same things we do. Like we don't see spiders doing taxes. We don't see monkeys like building zoos and putting things in it.
Putting humans in zoos.
Yeah, so like we don't see things like that, so we automatically assume
they're lesser.
These things aren't conscious, but it's like we don't know because we can't talk to them because it's a language. I mean, well, not a language, but it kind of is actually.
It's a language.
Yeah, because most animals do have some form of at least rudimentary.
Whether it be noises or chemicals,
noises and chemical or body language.
And there's like different animals that have pretty developed enough languages.
Speaking a really good example, ants.
Actually, I was going to bring that up, yeah.
They make incredible colonies just by like pheromone and chemical signatures. Yeah. And they can literally organize an army to take down other ants.
Well, and that's actually
like they don't have we don't know, but they probably don't have a consciousness, but they use like chemicals and scent trails, and and there's different kinds of workers.
Well, that's a good point, though, because kind of if you start thinking about the whole consciousness thing especially like with something like ants, because they might, I mean, because look at what they do. They have a queen, which
they build
which
city.
They know is a queen, and because of the queen, they build a city around this queen, and then they make sure that the queen survives.
They defend the queen. They have jobs. They've got builder ants, like worker ants that collect food.
They go out to get
army
food.
Army ants that they will go out and battle other ant tribes to protect the queen. Like, and they all do this just by chemical scent. Like, that's crazy.
And I could be wrong with ants, but I actually think that they're one of the animals that we found ferment things. They have like they found rooms like chambers inside of their anthills where they're fermentation chambers.
I don't know if you knew this, but they use aphids and treat them like cattle.
Yeah, I have heard of that, I think.
They take aphids and they train them and treat them like cattle to eat like leaves, and then they use their excrements, the aphids' excrements, as like wall foundation support, like mortar for bricks.
Yeah.
And they'll harvest and cattle silkworms to make nests out of.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of the silkworms, but I did hear I'm pretty sure about the aphids.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and that kind of like really shows it. And it's the same thing with dolphins too, especially because they're kind of the thing that we say is like below us on the intelligence spectrum is dolphins.
Yeah.
But especially with language, kind of the thing with it is every species has developed a language that does what it needs it to do. No other species needs a language where they can like write poetry and talk about conscious. They don't have to like.
They make a language to keep themselves alive and reproducing,
and
that's all you need.
And they found
just
like
to stay alive.
I think ants, if I remember, it have like I think it's under 100 words, but it's something like 80. And it's not like words, but it's like things that they
just different chemical
specific things. Yeah.
And it's crazy how that little of a thing can just organize, like especially when you get ants in your house. You see every single, if you notice, they'll have a set path they will take every single time because those ants leave that trail, and every single ant before that ant will follow that trail to get to where the food source is. And every single time you have ants, they're always coming from one hole, and they go in and out of that hole. It's like, hey, it's a trade route. That's what that is, right? They build trade routes. There are ant colonies that will find and work with other ant colonies to keep them alive.
Yeah, and with bees also do something similar. Where
bees do that. Yeah.
Bees know who's in their kind of tribe, you could say, because like if two bee groups get together, like they'll know, like they kind of like exchange. Like there's been beekeepers who say that, like where they like know that like when two bee groups will get together, the bees will kind of all swarm together for a little bit, and then they'll leave. Like and the beekeeper just knows that like what they're doing is they're kind of like discussing their territory. I mean, they're not talking about it like we would obviously. It's kind of like
treaty.
It's kind of like the same thing with dogs, where they mark their territory by peeing on it.
Exactly.
Oh, I've seen a thing with ants is like if an ant colony like defeats another ant colony, like kills the queen or whatever, they'll take those ants and like make them like servants or slaves or whatever.
They will enslave the ants.
And then they'll just make them workers.
And if they don't work for them, they'll kill them. They'll rip their legs off and tear their bodies apart. Yeah. Another cool thing about bees. Speaking of bees, if honey, if it's left out in the sun or a certain thing, it can ferment, and then it'll essentially make the bees drunk, and drunk bees are not allowed back in the hive.
That's funny. They have bouncer.
Is it like
bees.
not allowed permanently, or like
not allowed permanently? They kill the bees. They exile them from the hive.
They're bouncer bees. They have they have prohibition. This is
well, no, because like they will act just like they'll act different, and they'll secrete different pheromones, and it'll be like, yo, you're a bad bee. You're not allowed back in here.
Bee colonies are like 1920s America.
Yeah, prohibition laws.
Except everyone's not drinking.
Except there's not flapper bees.
Yeah, imagine. But like it's
never
crazy
know.
to get to dive into the realm of it's crazy to dive into the realm of what like is and isn't consciousness, right?
Yeah.
Because like we were saying, we describe consciousness as what we feel of our own, but every single person's way of describing consciousness to them would be different. Like your version of consciousness might be different than mine.
What if we're just a sliver of consciousness and we don't know the rest of it, and other people have a higher level of consciousness, but we don't think it is?
Like some people are more hyper aware of things, like that other people don't.
Like crabs. Things keep evolving into crabs. Crabs are the peak intelligence.
Like it's just it's interesting to think about. And the thing you were bringing up is the discovery of fire. That must have been crazy. Like if I was the first person to ever discover fire, I'd probably think I was God. But I didn't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the theories I've heard about how they think that because this would have already been when they were transitioning into humans, like after the whole like eating the psychedelics and getting high 24/7.
I mean, they definitely. My guess for cause of how they found fire was probably lightning.
Yeah, that's what they think. It's like that they watched lightning strike.
They wouldn't just strike to like you see it all the time in like movies and like the like fake children's crap that they found fire by striking two rocks, like they discovered it on their own. No, it had to be some force that lit something on
They
fire.
watched it happen and tried to replicate it.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the theory I was gonna say. Where it's what they think happened is they watched they think that they saw like lightning hit a tree, and then they were like, okay, so something needs to hit something else, and it'll catch on fire. So then that's when they tried hitting things together.
Flint and
Yeah.
It was kind of like process of elimination, and it eventually happened.
And that in turn goes straight into how fire has completely advanced us as a civilization, right?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the other thing.
Because
that's how we started shaping like bronze and stuff.
Because fire was probably one of the biggest things that we could have.
It definitely was, because other than, I mean, even with the stoned ape theory, if you think, because basically what fire did before even like the Bronze Age, and when we figured out we could smell things with fire.
Yeah, way even before that, it could get you to cook things.
Well, because that's what I was going to bring up, because like with the stoned ape theory, I mean, it's like, the mushrooms, even if this is something that actually happened, the mushrooms, okay, they developed our brains, but then we wouldn't have enough food to develop our bodies. So
like you can feed things, you can keep warm during winter, so that causes a lot of less deaths.
Exactly.
Well, because food, a lot of nutrients,
you can boil water, so that helps with disease. I don't know if they knew that, but
I don't think they knew that yet.
In meat, which is why we have the best kind of nutritional. That's why humans are able to get the most nutritional value out of food, because with meat, you only get, I think it's a third of the nutritional value if it's uncooked.
Of like the energy,
Yeah, so you need to cook it, and that kind of unlocks the rest, like the full.
Yeah, because it like heats up all the nutrients and the like all that stuff.
So that basically is what allowed us to go from being like, the small, like how you see apes where they're kind of like hunchbacked and they have like the short limbs, and like all that stuff.
It gave our limbs the opportunity to grow longer.
Yeah, because we had that cooked meat, which gave us more nutrients.
Develop our muscles.
Then we started
transitioning into like hunter, where we could outrun things.
Almost just as good as cooked meat, as if not better, cooked fish.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many good things in cooked fish. Like, it's really, really good for you.
Fish is basically just straight vitamins.
Exactly. It's really good for you, and cooking fish brings out more of that, right?
Yeah.
And even simpler than that, right? Imagine eating a bunch of, like, grass, leaves, berries, and raw meat all your life. Suddenly, you find fire. and then you cook your first thing.
Yeah.
Tasting that, imagine that sensation of tasting what cooked things taste like.
Well, that's also a good point with the whole what fire inadvertently led to, because we were able to cook, is then what could start happening is we didn't have to be spending like 6 hours of our waking day looking for berries, because when you're only eating berries and raw,
that doesn't give you enough.
You need a lot of berries.
and raw, like you need a lot of berries. If you're eating meat, you need a lot of meat. If you're eating like leaves, you basically like
you have to eat a whole tree.
It's all these things where it's like
you could live off of like 5 fish a day.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like once people found out, like, oh, if like 2 of us go out in the morning, kill like a deer, or we kill like if you're out in the African savannah, like you kill like even like an elephant once they got spears and stuff. I mean, obviously they didn't have salt at that time, so they couldn't preserve it, but it's like that could feed for a week,
a long time.
Yeah. And that's basically like,
and like
what allowed us. That's into the consciousness thing. This is a different way to look at consciousness and more of the human-centered way of looking at it.
Being aware to know how to keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
it's like you can, because they would probably start thinking, okay, instead of getting these berries, I could kill this thing now that I have it, and then I'll be able to survive longer with. Because like one steak back then, you'd have to eat like a whole bush of berries to equivalent to that.
And not just staying alive, but like living better.
Yeah, it's like because if they started developing a conscious, us like as humans in and of itself, we always strive for the best in ourselves, and we always want more, right?
Be greedy.
We all humans are greedy.
It's kind of that seed.
Right.
Inside of us that we want to grow.
And because like that dates back to that, because our survival instinct, because what they would do is they would try to make the best that they could so that they could live longer.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up, where it's like it kind of started allowing, because of the fire and because of cooking the food, it allowed it where it's like, yeah, you send out 2 people in the morning, they catch the meat, and then you have a few people go out and maybe get some berries and stuff for variety. And because, so if you imagine if you have like a village of, well, not a village, but if you have a group of 30 people, if you send out 6 of them, even if they're out most of the day, the other 24 of them can start doing things like,
and
thinking about themselves, thinking about why they're here, thinking about what they're doing.
And what also that probably helped with?
Developing.
If
like
they started
like
doing that, where they could start sending things out, that's where the idea of shelters and little huts came from.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because then you
people
could start
would have
staying
time
in one
to start
place.
building things, right? But then again, more food and more nutrition also gives you the ability for more exploration.
Yeah.
Discovering more land, discovering different fruits, more berries, discovering a better ocean with better fish. Like just the agricultural exploring to find the best spot to survive for longer.
Well, and then definitely, so farming would be the third big thing that happened, because once there was farming, then they didn't have to, like, because even when they still had fire,
they didn't have to go search for the berries.
Yeah, because
they would have them right there.
Well, because even whenever we moved into like more of a meat-centered diet, it's like you still had to be nomadic because you had to follow the cattle.
Yeah.
But it's like once you could like kind of like you could just hunt whatever cattle passed by, but also have farming where you could get like wheat and things like that.
And then like even
then you could stay.
So this is like super advanced now, right? We can come back to the earlier stuff, but like speaking of that, go where the things are. Indians and their buffalo.
Yeah. They
just
follow the buffalo.
They would follow the buffalo, and they would get themselves into a cycle where they would know when the buffalo's coming, right? They would center rituals around trying to summon the buffalo.
Well, there was a thing that I heard with the Native Americans where they had like whenever they would, I forget how it went, but there was a prayer that they had where they would pray that it was something like they would pray that the white man would leave and the buffalo would return.
Yeah.
And it was something that they would pray about, and then it just never came. And I heard that, and I was like, man, that is some crappy poetic stuff right there.
Well, they tried it.
I know, because I think about that, and you think about their mindset. I mean, they obviously were very smart, so they knew that what they were doing wasn't going to bring that stuff to fruition. But it was like they still.
It was that sense of hope.
Yeah, like it was just kind of.
That goes back to consciousness, like these feelings that we get, like hope, perseverance, like straight up like happiness in of itself, like the ability to feel these emotions, right?
I mean, happiness was
The
probably just evolved because, like, hey, eating steak and eating fish and stuff
feels good.
It's better for you, so your brain's like, hey, let's make a thing that makes them want to do that.
Exactly, right? And
So they did that.
like hope, the believing in things, like just the concept in and of itself of being able to think about stuff, like the ability to, of course, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of religions, but we'll use God as the basic example, right? Just being able to think of something like that existing, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to devote
come up with things that you haven't seen.
Devote yourself to believing in this thing, and just the ability to think about having a sense of hope, like it's just crazy the way that the brain works and how much you can do with it.
Well, like, to that,
because it's just a bunch of mindless cells. That's all this is.
Mindless cells that make a mind.
It's just it's a bunch of mindless things working together just to make simple chemical impulses that aren't even alive. Chemical impulses that aren't even living beings, but to make that a consciousness
greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah, really.
Like, that's just crazy to think about. Something that's not even alive, like a chemical impulse from the nerves in our head, right? To make thoughts and make us feel alive when it itself isn't alive.
Yeah.
How weird is that, right?
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to like fathom and try to wrap your head around.
Well, and to the point of religion, C.S. Lewis was a Christian apologetic. That's what they were called. Basically, people who were strongly convicted by their faith and like tried to explain it to other people. And he would do that in like letters and books and stuff like that. And he summarized humans' kind of relationship with religion as it was. He called it the inconsolable longing. And what he was saying pretty much was, we all have that inside of us where we basically have this hole, and that's why we all look in different ways, obviously, but we all look for like sort of like there's something there.
That thing to fill the hole.
Yeah, and what that is I mean, but kind of what it is that leads to like things like hedonism, where it's like you're trying to fill the hole, but it's always something that's too small to fill. So what you're looking for is something big enough where that hole is going to be filled. So what he was answering that question with was like the Christian God, but it's like, I really like that metaphor, the unconsolable longing, because it's just something that everyone's always looking for, and that's basically what leads us to do everything that we're doing, because we're always trying to, like, whether it be something like kind of
it's
more
a good
destructive.
Thing. That's why everybody asks, "What's the meaning of life?"
Yeah,
right.
Basically,
and we're always trying to.
And everyone has different answers.
We're chasing that meaning, but here's the thing: whenever we think we have it,
we find
it then
else.
Goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's never enough to fill it.
It's never
satisfying.
Exactly. So we ask what the meaning of life is, but really there isn't one.
I think there's different ones for.
There's different ones for different people.
There's no meaning of life. It's a path.
Okay, here's a good way to look at it. There is a meaning of life, and the meaning, I think of it, the meaning is trying to chase what we think is the meaning, because we will never actually find it.
Well, I know Torren's going to get this one because we used to joke about it. In Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the meaning of life, whenever they asked the computer what the meaning of life was, and it
just said 42.
Yeah, and it took it like, it processed it for like this question for like, I think it was like 8 million years or something like that, and then it comes back with the answer 42, and the two guys who were sent to figure out, like, to hear this computer's response, they were like, 42, what does 42 mean? And they were trying to figure it out, and people have made good points about what they think Douglas Adams, who's the guy who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, meant by that, because obviously you read that and at face value you're like, 42, that's ridiculous, that's just
they just made up a random number.
It's just some random number.
It's just a joke.
But kind of what he was saying, and this is what people think, I mean, obviously he's dead, so like we can't ask him, but people, what they think he was trying to say there is that the meaning of life is finding the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
And so kind of in a kind of ironic sort of way, by asking what is the meaning of life, they were asking the wrong question, because if you're asking what the meaning of life is, that means that you haven't found it, because if you found it, you wouldn't be asking what it is. So then giving the answer 42 is basically saying this question is
unanswerable.
Well, it's not unanswerable. It's just it's a dumb question to ask, because if you're asking it, then paradoxically, if you're asking what the meaning of life is, you're never going to find it, because if you need to ask what it is, you don't have it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the point to, like, everyone's meaning of life is something different, and like to some people it's like they find it in relationships with people. Some people they find it with things that they do. With some people they find it in relationships to a higher kind of unseen power. And I mean, yeah, ultimately there might be one right answer, and like, I mean, obviously I have my own opinions on what that is. Everyone has their own opinions on what they think the actual answer is, but it's kind of like, you know, the right thing to be doing isn't to be saying what is it. It's just to kind of find what it is to you,
and then you follow it, and that's the person's business.
Yeah, because nobody is either right and nobody is wrong. That's the thing, because we don't.
That's
we
why
don't know.
That's why I really hate arguments about like a religion and which one's better and stuff like that. Because like, if someone follows something, there's no what?
Huh?
Huh?
I was saying something. Keep going.
Okay. Anyway, with like people follow whoever they want and stuff, like, there's no way to prove one right or wrong. So why does it matter to you? Let them follow what they want.
Right. Because you can't prove these things. Because most of them, you have to be dead to get there. And you can't prove that.
Well, all of them you have to be dead to be there. Because it's either you have to be dead to be there, or you have to be no longer you. Because it's like in something in most like.
Or you have to like reach enlightenment.
Well, because that's like Buddhism, where it's like you
eventually 1,000 years.
You eventually
get there.
You eventually reach enlightenment. But normally reaching enlightenment, you're not the one to do it. It's one of your reincarnations. So so basically, what Buddhism is
But
like,
see, to get reincarnated, you gotta die. So who even knows if it exists? Like, that's the thing. Like, with religion itself, that's a good point. Like, we have to die to figure it out, so it'll never be proved. I've thought about this a lot, actually. Like, when I die, am I gonna see something, or I'm gonna see nothing? And then what's gonna happen? All of the memories, all of the subconscious is just gonna be gone? What is that gonna feel like? We can't, as humans, we can't.
It feels like what it felt like before you were born.
But we don't know what that is.
Exactly.
Because it's a part where our brain cannot comprehend it. It's just we physically cannot think of what that is. We can't, because when people tell you to clear your mind and think of nothing, you can't think of nothing, because then you will be thinking about nothing, which is something.
Well, it's like sorry. It's like
keep it in your head.
Well, it's like the question.
Like 3 things in there now.
Yeah, it's like the thing. It's like asking what is the meaning of life. Like, I completely lost my. You can go on.
Okay.
Because you being all disappointed. You being all disappointed completely made me forget.
It's just how your brain can't think in the negative. Like, hey, don't think a giraffe. You're thinking of a giraffe now.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah. Well,
you are now manually breathing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So it's kind of like asking, like, what is the meaning of life? Where it's like, well, you're asking the wrong question. If you're trying to think of nothing, it's not. You don't think of nothing. You just kind of sit there, and then it's like sleep, because you never fall asleep if you're thinking I want to go to sleep. You fall asleep whenever you
start wandering off
down
a train.
Whenever you finally,
when you stop thinking about
sleep.
sleep.
And it's the same thing with clearing your mind. And like, like having tried something like meditation before, that's kind of like what it is, where it's like you don't think, okay, I'm gonna not think about anything.
You have to think of something simple.
Well, no, you don't think of anything. You just breathe. You just breathe in, you breathe out, and then eventually
you reach that equilateral Zen point.
Yeah, where you just stop thinking.
That's why, like, thinking about your breathing, so the breathing is the only thing you're thinking about.
Well, no, but you don't think about your breathing. It just becomes like a muscle thing. But you're still focused on it. You're just not thinking about it. Like, you're not thinking, okay, I need to breathe.
You're in that basic state of consciousness where you're just aware. Mm-hmm. You're not hyper-focusing on anything. You're aware of it all at once. So it feels like nothing.
Oh, back to that thing where, like, we can't comprehend after and we can't comprehend before. That's what I think is where like reincarnation and rebirth came from, because they're like, oh, same thing at both ends. What if it's a loop?
Right. But then again, nobody could know.
What if it's like a sine wave, like it comes down and then it comes back up?
Yeah. The only way, because there have been people that say, because
like reincarnation. That's the whole thing with the Dalai Lama.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Like when people die from a heart attack, but they're brought back. Apparently, they say they see stuff, right? Like, have you guys heard of that?
Yeah. Well, what that is they say that whenever
that's just their brain dying.
Well, that actually comes back to our whole psychedelic thing that we started with. One of the theories with psychedelics is whenever you die, like whenever you're at that last point right before your body shuts down, your brain releases
all of its chemicals at once.
Well, it releases a large amount because they think that the pineal gland in your brain, which is kind of what they call it the third eye.
Because what I feel like is happening is I think everything, it just relaxes and all of that built up there just releases. And it's just a wave of all these things at once because like it fires all the stuff because it's dying. It can't hold it in anymore.
It's panicking. It's like it's trying to figure out something to help, but it doesn't know what, so it's just shooting everything.
It's basically like that, but what it's saying is your pineal gland, which people have called the third eye before in different religions, because they think that this is pretty much the source of like where our consciousness comes from.
That's a good point.
Well,
I'll keep that in my head.
It releases. Well, they think that it secretes very small amounts of dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT, which is like that basic ingredient of ayahuasca, and it's the thing. It's pretty much like LSD, but at a much higher level.
Yeah.
And they think that
super LSD.
And your brain. I don't know if they've done complete studies on it because a lot of this stuff is still like they're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
But they say that they think what happens is your brain always is releasing very small amounts of DMT.
That's why we have a consciousness.
And that's why we have it.
Yeah.
And that's why when you take it, it gets amplified.
Yeah.
Like crazy. And so what they think happens is whenever you die, your pineal gland, because they think that your pineal gland in certain points, like when you're dreaming, and that's what they think causes dreams, is a more excess of it. But they think whenever you die, it releases a lot of it, so then you're not fearful. It's like a natural reaction that your body's doing, like how you will twitch if something like gets on your skin, you'll twitch. It kind of thinks like it's what your body's doing to make you kind of have a more of a blissful death, because what it is it's kind of like what people mean when they say their life flashes before their eyes, because they get such a large dose of this all at once and they've never felt it before that they don't know what it is.
Yeah, and rehashing a topic that Torrin brought up earlier, like it's kind of like you said about untapped consciousness, like some consciousness are better than others or bigger than others. What if drugs show us what our consciousness could constantly be like if it was releasing that much all the time?
Well, it's because it's like I said, with them being connectors, they're just connecting our brains.
That's not what I'm saying. Like drugs show, like say we're normal without drugs, and we just had more of that stuff being secreted.
Yeah.
The drugs would show us what we would always think and feel like if we would have evolved further back then.
That's what I mean. Like if you're thinking of them as connectors, and then you're kind of thinking like the untapped part of your brain is like, because they say you're only using like 10% of your brain. So it's like then when you're taking this,
it's showing you what more would be like.
It's like maybe it's obviously not 100%.
It shows you what like
maybe like
35,
30,
35% of your brain would be like, and you're like, whoa, this is what it could be like. You know what I mean?
There's an interesting concept. It's actually from Skyrim lore.
Of course it is.
But it's like, it's in that world, like the state of enlightenment is you actually realize that you were in a dream, you don't exist. There is just a dreamer that's all you are. But
that's how you start thinking we live in a simulation.
But you have the willpower, but like I know I don't exist, but I exist, and then you basically get like godlike abilities because you've enlightened and like.
And to think before I lose this idea that I was thinking of, the idea of asking what is a consciousness, right? What is a soul? Right? Because everybody thinks we have a soul. Like everybody says that you yourself has a soul.
It's just a tunnel. It's just a configuration tunnel of things that connect in your brain.
Exactly, but like
that make you think that.
Exactly, but how would like everybody?
Like, if you put enough flour, sugar, and milk together, eventually get a cake. If you put enough neurons in a bucket, eventually get a soul.
I guess, but like to think about it, like a soul, like. And we were talking about how to see if anything is out there, we have to die, right? But then, like, nobody knows. It's, again, incomprehensible of what actually happens when that happens because we don't know. We can't see it because we can't. It's not like we can go, hey, guys, there's cool stuff up here because we're dead.
Yeah.
Well,
sure, like, to be whatever your take on the paranormal is, we could do a whole episode on the paranormal. Actually, that'd be a good idea. That'd be a good episode.
It would be.
Like the idea of like paranormal.
We'll really turn into the Joe Rogan experience.
The idea of the paranormal and spirits and stuff.
I think
like,
we need to put another log on the fire.
the ability to like, because whether spirits exist or not, we have the technology to apparently see that. They know what it's like, but they don't tell us. So who knows if they're real or not? And who knows if it's actually out there, or there's just these mindless things that could or could not be souls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't know.
Is
right?
the soul just a threshold? Like, once your neurons get complex enough, it just... there's the things of dimensions where, like, once you die, your body, which is your 3D, you lose that, and your soul's 4D, you go into be a 4-dimensional being and stuff like that. Which is an interesting theory and stuff like that.
That's kind of what happens in Slaughterhouse 5, is the main character gets taken into this kind of prison, kind of like prison zoo by these 4th-dimensional beings. But what the 4th-dimensional beings look like to him were these really long centipedes.
Ooh.
But not like a centipede, it's just how he was visualizing it, because basically what he's seeing, because what a 4th-dimensional being, because we know that what we think the 4th dimension is time. Like, that's what we believe that the 4th dimension is.
Yeah.
So the reason they would look like... Well, no, actually, sorry, I'm thinking of this the wrong way. We look like centipedes to them because they're seeing us... They're not seeing our... Because we only see us in 3 dimensions, but they're seeing us plus our time.
Yeah.
So they see
us... See, but here's the thing.
So they're seeing us as like a long tunnel of time.
Who knows if time in of itself actually exists?
Oh, I saw this thing.
Right? Because, like, time just passes. Like, the day, the sun and stuff, that all still rotates. And the days of the month, what's today's date?
Well, time's just a
social construct.
Yeah, that's
right?
what I'm saying. It's just a concept.
Who knows if it's like that?
So we know
how
when
fast
to do
does
things.
time move? 1 second per second? That doesn't make sense.
Like, how
do you describe it?
You can't measure that stuff. We just brought this up to make our lives easier, but
yeah,
time probably doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, the reason that we were able to make it is because there was things that happened on enough of a scheduled format that we could say, okay,
realize
this is like a day.
that's
so it's
thing.
like, okay, the sun sets, so we'll just call this one rotation
a day,
and then we'll wake up when it's. I mean, we'll go to sleep when it's dark because that's easier than going to sleep when it's light, and then we'll do things that we were supposed. Like, we'll do important things when we're awake.
Because like the calendar, right? It's a Tuesday. What's a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Like. It's just a thing. It's just a thing we made up.
We could have a 10-day week and it wouldn't make a difference.
Exactly. It wouldn't change anything. A year, 365. Who made that number up and why? Like, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Well, that was also like another thing, like with the sun, because it's like that's how long it takes for us to go the whole way around the sun.
But we could make the same thing.
No, I know what you mean.
Like,
I'm just saying that's why we chose it that way.
Oh, I did. Who is it? Some physicists were saying that like, time is the 4th dimension in the 3rd dimension, but like, so like, if you get what I'm trying to say, but like in the 4th dimension, time isn't the 4th dimension.
I'm gonna toss these on
I know what you mean.
It's a sub.
Tossing it random. Beautiful.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because it's like for us, like. It's weird to explain, but it's like for us, like, depth isn't like, we don't measure things in depth. I mean, we do, but it's not like a whole thing. It's like we just see depth. Like, we just know that there's depth. But
we don't see depth. We make it up. Our brain makes it up.
Well, yeah, because that's how eyes work.
The idea of color. This is off topic.
Wavelengths.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not an idea. That's just a physical thing.
No. Well, here's the thing.
All right.
It's just wavelengths. It's how we comprehend wavelengths for no reason.
Here's the thing, right? I was thinking about this the other day. What if that is orange to us, right? But something else sees that, like, maybe
it's how the cones in your eyes are seeing it, because there is like a basic like how things interact with each other. Like,
and here's
that cause, because that's what the color spectrum is. There's ultraviolet, there's X-ray, and we're only able to see that little tiny section.
I asked you guys this question a while back. What if an alien civilization comes down, right, and tells us that all of our math is wrong, and that we're doing it a completely inefficient way? Sure, it works for us, but there is a much easier way. Like, say, to them, they figured out 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. What are we gonna do?
Honestly, like, mathematicians and scientists would be really happy.
No, they wouldn't. Mathematicians and scientists especially scientists, are honestly like some of the most egotistical people that exist.
I mean,
because
but
they think that what
they're
they're
trying to prove science wrong to make it better. So if someone came and told them it's
everything's wrong,
here's how it's right, they'd be like, yes.
No, see, I don't think that would happen. What I think would happen is they would try to deny that. They would be like, no, don't you see what we're doing? Like, what we're doing is right. Like, don't we? It's worked for us. Like, I feel like that's what would happen. Like, have you ever watched like Neil deGrasse Tyson interviews? Like that guy.
Like
if someone told him he was wrong, I think he wouldn't be able to handle it.
What about like the fire and like how the Industrial Revolution, right?
Is that what we were talking?
Well, you did ask how fire changed us and like advanced us as a civilization. The Industrial Revolution, the ability that we figured out, hey, fire produces heat, boil water, make steam, train go forward. Mm-hmm. Right?
I mean, there was a little more in there, but like, yeah.
It's very close enough, right?
Well, if you think about it, it is kind of interesting that like everything that we do to like how parasitic we are when you think about it, because everything that we do that is what makes us us is also at the same time destroying us. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like fire is great, we can cook our food, but eventually the fact that we can make things combust with each other, whether it be this sort of fire or like a nuclear power plant, it's eventually going to take us out.
Chernobyl.
So, back to like when we first started making villages and like getting groups and roles.
God, that YouTube video helped with this a lot.
What YouTube video?
The history of the entire world. This makes me.
Are you talking about the Bill Wards?
Yes.
Oh my lord.
I'm able to talk about this so much better because of that video.
Oh wow. The sun is attached to laser. Okay, anyway, what I was going is about
back on tangent.
Where like it's kind of like where the idea of murder is bad
Whoa.
came from.
That's a good idea.
Where it's basically everyone had their role, and if you killed someone, they weren't doing their role, and it would negatively affect you. So killing people was just bad.
Yeah.
And so that's where the whole idea came from, and so that just stuck with us, and now.
Exactly. And another idea. The fact that swear words are considered bad words.
Oh boy, don't get me in.
No, I really don't understand swear words at all because it doesn't.
Like
they were George Carlin.
They were just brought up by society to be considered bad. But what makes them bad?
Adults can't swear around kids, so the kids don't swear, and then when they get older, they swear, and then.
Don't swear around. So they swear around their friends, but they don't swear around the kids. So like the kids who turn into adults swear around their adult friends who used to be kids, but then they, being adults, don't swear around their kids. So it's just.
But the fact that the swear word is a swear word, what makes it a swear word?
The whole idea is it helps you be nice to people by swearing is mean.
But what
you
makes
can
it
be
mean?
so much meaner by not swearing. Like you can give I don't like you. You are annoying. I hate when you ever talk.
You are a seriously garbage human being, and your energy over here is really scraping up my vibe.
And I think you need to leave.
Yeah.
You've had too much
I'm not joking.
You are messing with my eternal essence. My chakras are not in line, my guy. You need to get out. Your negative aurora is really hiking up my vibe right now, and this. I'm not having this. You're really dumbing down the energy of my crystals.
This is no longer insulting. Basically the way that I look at language as a whole, including including swear words and everything else, is if I kind of imagine it as every word has a intrinsic value of 1. So all the words have the same value. So it's
interesting.
So it's I don't care really what word. I mean, obviously there's a few, but it's those are more because of the connotation behind it.
Slurs.
Yeah, stereotypical things. Those have a value of 0. I'm not going to use those for anything. But even
what has a value of 2?
Nothing has a value of 2.
Duh.
How do you know?
It's binary. It's either 0 or 1. where every word has a value of 1. Except for the few exceptions. Basically, what I mean by that is I'm willing to use any word I need to get the point across that I need to, but that's more for when I write, because when I talk, I do try not to say certain things just because I know that they can offend people. I'm not out to try to offend people, but it's especially when I write, I feel that's kind of what writers need to be able to do.
I just realized something. We went from the Industrial Revolution to this. How did we do that?
just how conversations work.
I don't get it.
But
A conversation is supposed to smoothly flow from one thing to the next.
Here's
like
a
the
good,
other
here's
day.
a good thing. What is conversation? And why does it happen?
The other day, I was in a
No.
Discord call.
You know what?
They were talking about graphics cards, and then all of a sudden they were talking about Minecraft mods, and I didn't notice when the change was.
So if the original theory was true about mushrooms being what caused us to turn human, what do you think would happen? Because right now we're kind of at the point in humanity where we make certain things like that illegal. But what do you think
But
would?
why?
The
Well,
Illuminati.
No, but what my point is
They don't want us evolving.
is what-
Conspiracy theory.
is what
It's
do
a
you
whole other can of worms.
is what do you think would happen? You know,
Can of
if we started doing
4D centipedes.
bruh, is what do you think would happen if we started, if we continued, like if we like, because obviously I don't think like it stops here. Like if the mushrooms are evolving consciousness, I don't think the level that we're at right now in human consciousness is the end of it.
We're
It's
not
not
peak.
the end of it.
This
We're
is not peak
No.
consciousness.
Yeah.
It's God. If
So
this
it's
is
like-
peak, this sucks.
I know, that's my point. So it's like, what would? And,
Did you know? Speaking of random, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
but did you know Oregon
Tangents.
decriminalized all drugs?
Who?
Oregon,
Oregon?
the state.
Oh, Oregon.
Yeah,
There's
Oregon.
there's a few places who have done that. I
No,
think-
like all drugs.
No, I know.
Like every single drug.
I know. I've heard of
Just
that.
decriminalized.
I think
It's
Washington,
honest-
I think
when did they
Washington
do
did that too.
I don't know.
Are you
Okay,
kidding
no, it
me?
was just
Oh,
that.
okay.
Okay, we didn't lose power.
I think Washington did that as well. But I might just.
Well, yeah, they're right there. They're buddy
Okay,
buddy.
Yeah.
so my
They got their moose.
my
Well, see,
thought
but-
about legalizing drugs is in the short term, in the next like 10 or so years, it's gonna spike up in usage.
It's gonna spike them in usage, but it's also gonna, like,
Well,
I guess the crime,
my-
the smuggling will go down. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, no, my problem with that is with legalizing everything is I think whenever people, I think there's kind of a misunderstanding with that people have, especially whenever you start talking about psychedelics, because we have that kind of like, you know, the say no.
Psychedelics are really bad.
Well, we have that whole
oh,
yeah,
you're-
and
and like it's the
and the reason we-
stereotype that is brought around
well,
it.
and the
because,
reason
like,
we think it's bad is because yeah, there's like the hippie movies where it's like you see them as idiots, but then there's also like there was the whole Reagan thing that he tried to do where he basically tried to like make everyone think that
see, but
drugs are going to kill people.
But they don't, because like there's this whole thing, like some people who take drugs,
The
Yeah.
drugs don't kill people. It's the problem is
people
the greed
kill
of trying
people.
to sell them illegally and lacing them with
Well,
just
that's
Well,
not-
no,
that- that's
well,
not
no,
even
well,
what
no,
I'm
no, no,
talking
no, no.
about. Like-
Hold on. No, wait.
Bro.
No, I mean, before we get on some like talking about that every drug should be legal.
That's not what I'm talking
No,
about.
I know, but I feel like we might start going down that slippery slope with Torrens' point.
Yeah, I get
is-
that,
Yeah.
but that's not my point.
Is there should be people should understand that there's a difference between something like LSD and something like heroin.
yeah.
Because heroin is synthetic.
Mhm.
LSD is natural. At least
yeah,
if
weed is
you're,
natural.
if you're doing
weed
the
is a plant.
if you're doing the mush but that's the problem though, because with weed and some especially weed, because that's like the new popular one where it's recreational, is there's a lot of different types of weed because of the THC and CBD in it.
all the crap.
and
yeah.
There can and because that actually the problem is because we don't because there's not like because the FDA
There's not stores like
There's not
you can buy 'em,
regulation.
like
well, no, what I
cigarettes.
mean is the FDA doesn't like it's not something that the FDA looks at. So there's no like okay, this weed is actually good. This weed could
Well, yeah,
actually
'cause
damage you,
If
and that's
it
why
would
we.
get to,
but
like,
that's what-
legalize it and then regulate
Well, that's what I mean.
so
That's
it's
why it
safe.
needs legalized
then-
because it needs regulated so it can become safe for people.
like regulated and then sell like a consumer thing like cigarettes,
yeah,
right?
but also get rid of cigarettes
Why
Yeah.
are
still
cigarettes
recording.
legal but like weed
Yeah.
isn't? Like what's the difference?
because
The weed can be like
conveniently taxed drugs.
Convenient.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring this up. There's a great because you were saying like people who take drugs and do good things, and then there's people who do bad things. There's 2 points that I want to make to your point and to your point. There's this comedian who did comedy back in the late '80s and early '90s. His name was Bill Hicks, and he did this great
Bo
bit.
Burnham?
Huh?
Bo Burnham?
No, he did this great bit on what you were talking about, where he said, if you guys, he basically said, like paraphrasing it, he said, if anyone here has a problem with, you know, the legalization of drugs or with marijuana or anything like that, I want you to go home and I want you to burn all of your CDs, all of your records, and all of your vinyls, because all those people who wrote all of your favorite music were super high on drugs. And everyone laughs. Because but he does like this weird, like, I can't do it because I can't go that low with my voice, but he like drags like his vocal, like the way that he does it. It's hilarious. It's in the way I know about it because I'm such a weirdo. It's in they sampled it in the beginning of this one Tool song called Third Eye, funnily enough, and they use that bit because Bill Hicks in the beginning of Tool would go on the road with them and would open for them because he had a similar kind of philosophy that they had. And then to your point about the cigarettes, he also had another bit called Conveniently Taxed Drugs. And basically what he was saying is like, well, his whole idea was like, okay, why can you go to somewhere like a pharmacy and buy like these drugs that are chemically altering your body? And they are, and people can get addicted to them. People can get addicted to prescription pills just as easily as they can get addicted.
You can get addicted to anything.
But his point was like, conveniently taxed drugs. Why is that okay? Because those have taxes on them, so the government can make money from them.
Just like make an outro and just say that you gotta go.
Yep. All right.
Unfortunately, one of our primary hosts must leave, and it'll be down to 2.
That were good talkie-walkies, everybody. Yeah. I gotta go sweepy-weepy.
All right. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, but there were 2.
But the conveniently taxed drugs, it's like, yeah, cigarettes make... If cigarettes stopped making the government money, they wouldn't. They would just get rid of them.
They would get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
the way it is.
It's a crazy thought. You know, world is a crazy thing to think about. There's a lot to fathom. There's a lot to theorize. There's a lot to synthesize.
There's a lot of people with a lot of different ideas, and they all want their ideas to be the right
ideas.
Exactly. Because they all think their idea is the right idea, so then there's no answer.
The world is just crazy. That's the best way to put it.
The world's all a stage, and we are merely players. That's Shakespeare. All right. Anyways...
Seems like a good point to wrap
I know.
it
I was gonna say, for the people at home, I'm glad. I really hope you enjoyed our 4th episode where we actually all got together in person to do it.
Yeah.
We'll try to throw these in every now and again. Probably not every time. It's just for convenience. But like when we can do it, we'll do it. And obviously, since there was only one in Highlander fashion, Alex will be the host for the next episode.
Woo!
Not because he's in any way superior, just because he's the only one left.
Okay.